Antioch Union Church and Cemetery. We're in Tennessee, gang. And there is the church. And there is the cemetery. And that's where we're headed. We're in Crystal, Tennessee, gang. Far northwest tip of this state. We're going to go back to the early to mid 1800s. I'm going to tell you the story of the Sleeping Beauty, the real one. Apparently, a very odd case of Susan Caroline Godsey. Let's go to her grave down yonder, and I'll tell you this intriguing story. Look at this bell. McShane Bell, 1889. Yeah, she was born near here. I mean, this is Obion County, but she was born, well, they don't know what date was, in 1836 in Gibson County, Tennessee. Her parents, Clinton and Julia, an older sister named Mary. She's about 10 years older than her. And everything was pretty normal growing up. Susan was playful and happy growing up in this beautiful, then you can imagine, still pioneering country. Now, soon after they settled in, when Susan turned 8, she started to get the chills. They went to the doctor. They brought the doctor in with his little bag, and he administered the usual medications, and they would work. They'd work for a short time, but the chills kept coming back. When she turned 10 years old, she went to visit her sister, who was by then married. They were married at a young age back then, and while with her, they brought a new doctor in, a guy named Wilson. Dr. Wilson. And he was a peculiar guy. Dr. Wilson would prescribe some crazy things. He had a special concoction of drugs he called Watson's Remedy. Get this. Sulfuric ether mixed with lithium. And he gave it to her. Poor Susan. Can just imagine. Her symptoms went away, but other things happened. They thought, oh, maybe we're onto something here. Maybe we're onto a cure. But shortly thereafter, things got worse. Susan began having convulsions now and cramping. The cramping was so severe that her heels would reach the back of her head. Her knees would hit her chin as she would flop around on the floor. You have to figure Dr. Watson had to be a quack. They concluded that the medication formula that Dr. Watson had prescribed maybe was causing these new problems. They later found out that he was not just giving her that concoction, but he was adding in a spoonful of uric acid, a dose strong enough that could kill 3 men. But luckily she had survived. They didn't know why, but maybe it was because of her illness. Hard to say. Maybe it had now, this new medication had taken over her body and changed her internal chemistry, her metabolism. Now Dr. Watson was getting pretty worried. The word from the family was, well, they were mad. And they kind of fired him, as you could imagine, but Dr. Watson then got word, the rumor was that Gotze family, they were gonna come after him and kill him. So he panicked and he fled the area. He was gone. They couldn't find him. But Susan's condition did not improve. It's getting worse and worse. Well, they heard within a year or so, they heard that he had fled to eastern Tennessee and died. But the horrible saga continued for Susan. 3 more years, for 3 more years, she continued to have these same symptoms and attacks. But now she started vomiting blood. That's not bad enough. She was 13 years old now, and now she was falling into these deep sleeps. More and more and more. She couldn't wake up. She could wake up, I should say, for small, short periods of time. But some of the intervals were so long that they thought she had died. You know, they hold the mirror under the nose. Doctor would come, and luckily they didn't give up and bury her. She would have been buried alive. She would waken from time to time for very short periods, like 5 minutes maybe, and she would have intelligent conversations. But then she would go right back to sleep for hours and hours and hours. Doctors tried to keep her awake by continuously talking to her, but it didn't work. She'd be in the middle of talking, and all of a sudden she'd say, "Goodbye," and she'd close her eyes and go to sleep. She was unable to leave her bed for some 24 years. She could not remain awake more than just a few minutes. It was puzzling. No one could figure it out. She was able to eat. You ask, how could she eat? How could she survive? Well, she could eat a little bit in this short awake time, but interestingly, her black hair would continue to grow. They'd cut her hair, but her finger and toenails, they never grew again. Soon, news of her condition started spreading all over, not only the area, the state, the country, but even the world. Doctors were curious. Everyone wanted to study her. They wanted to solve the riddle, but no one could. In 1867, Susan was taken to Nashville by her family to see a doctor named Dr. Robert Eve, and he was a very well-respected doctor. Everyone knew him far and wide. He was the president of the medical college there in Nashville. He had ulterior motives, although he tried to help. He wanted her to be his exhibit for his medical students that were in training. So the family brought her there, and the doctor and his students, they all tried to figure it out, but no one could figure out what it was. So in 1870, the family went to St. Louis, Missouri, to a medical college there. Same result. No one could figure it out. Well, they were at a loss. What could they do? Well, guess who came calling? P.T. Barnum, the circus. He was offering them $1,000 I think it was $1,000 a week. So she could appear in the show and be an oddity, you know, one of the freaks. Thank God, the family here, they just said, no, we're not doing that. You're not doing that. So, turned him away, and they just kept looking for solutions. There was really just nowhere else to go. And if things weren't bad already, again, next thing is she contacted scarlet fever. One of her friends came over to visit. She had it, passed it along. Interestingly, no one else in the family got sick, only Susan got it. But maybe with her body chemistry and the odd combination of drugs that Dr. Watson had put in her, she survived the scarlet fever where most did not. Again, way before antibiotics. Then, interestingly, all of a sudden she started to show signs of getting better. She was staying awake. Every day that passed, her intervals of wakened state grew. It was just a few days, and everyone was optimistic. But then, all of a sudden, you know, it's like maybe a burst of adrenaline, or, you know, that last bit of life, that last rush, because it was short-lived and she died. She was gone. So they brought her here and they buried her here. Antioch Union in Crystal. Now as we stand here and we look at the cemetery, we go to the old section. I mean, we've seen a lot of old graves. I believe this is probably the oldest section. The resurrectionists came. They were trying to get her. They were trying to get Susan's body. Medical research. You know the stories. We told all the stories. The 1800s, early 1900s. The grave robbers, the ghouls. But her family made sure that didn't happen, because they came right here every night, probably for months. Probably not months, days or weeks, till the body really decays, then it's useless. And they stood guard right here, just imagine. You look around at the woods, and they guarded her grave, which is right here. Now her stone is long gone, but they came here, the historical folks in town here, and they, let's see who it is. Yeah, placed by Obion County Historical Society just 4 years ago. Love it. Good job, guys. Take pride in your history. So there's her grave, and it says the Sleeping Beauty. You can see right there. Sleeping Beauty. Susan Caroline Godsey. This is the only surviving picture of the Sleeping Beauty from the Thanatos archive. It appears to be post-mortem, but maybe not. She was only 36 or 37 when she passed. Well, she continues to sleep in eternity, eternal slumber. Rest in peace, Susan Gotze.